Hi everyone, welcome to the Unquiet Grave. My name's Ash, and today I have a fun Valentine's Day card tutorial for you. Now I know what you're thinking. This time of year, there is absolutely no shortage of Valentine's Day card tutorials. However, the one that we're making today is going to be a little bit different. It's going to have a gothic and medical gore twist to it. So the card that we're making today is this one right here. It's an anatomical heart in a jar, and then on the inside there is a specimen label that says you are the perfect specimen. So I think that this would be a great card for the darkly inclined people in your life, or you could use it as an anti-Valentine's Day card for someone that you still want to celebrate the holiday with, but in a different way other than the normal chocolates and flowers. So I'll go ahead and show you the supplies that you need in a moment to get started. Now the supplies that we're going to use will make 4 of these cards, so you can have one for your significant other, one for your friends or family, or just to creep out your coworkers. It's entirely up to you. And I'll also go ahead and include some close-up pictures of the card in a moment just so you can see some of the detail, and there will also be a link in the description to my website where you can get the templates that I've designed for this card so you can save yourself that whole designing step and just get straight into the project. So alright, let's go ahead and get started. Okay guys, so we're going to go ahead and go over the supplies that you're going to need today for your cards. Now first you're going to need cardstock or paper. You're going to need 5 sheets of red cardstock. I'm using cardstock today, but construction paper would work just as well. I'm using a deep red, but you could use any kind of red or any different color that you'd like, really. So it's going to be 4 pieces of paper for the body of the card and 1 piece of paper to print out the hearts. Then you're going to need also 3 sheets of beige cardstock or construction paper. It's going to be 2 sheets for the jars on the cards and 1 sheet for the specimen labels inside the cards. Then you're going to need obviously some scissors to go ahead and cut out the templates that you can print out off of my website. I'll have the link in the description box below, like I said earlier. Then you're going to need some kind of ribbon. I'm using a red ribbon just to keep it Valentine's Day themed. You're going to need some kind of glue to hold your card together. Now I'm going to be using hot glue sticks. Obviously if you're using hot glue sticks you'll need a hot glue gun. This one's very messy from my previous projects, so don't mind that. I'm going to go ahead and use some watercolors. I'm using this just so I can go ahead and get a nice sheer wash of color to make it look like there's fluid in the jar. And obviously if you're using any kind of paint, watercolors, what have you, you'll need a paintbrush just to go ahead and apply that to the card. I got a clear plastic folder from the dollar store as well. I'm going to cut a small strip out of here. I'll go ahead and do that now so you can see. And what this is going to do is just going to give us the option to raise the jar off the card a little bit, just so you can kind of give it some 3-dimension. You can glue it straight to the card if you don't want to include this step as well. So it's probably going to be about 3 inches, I'd say. So this is about the size strip that you'll need if you want to do this step. And I'll show you how to go ahead and apply that to the card in a moment. Okay guys, so I just went ahead and folded my piece of cardstock in half to get the body of the card. Now the next step that we're going to do is to cut out our pieces that we printed from the template. So here is what your heart template will look like when you print it out. There will be 4 hearts on 1 sheet. So we're just going to go ahead and cut those hearts out, and then also we're going to cut out the specimen labels that go inside the card, which there'll be 4 to a sheet on those as well if you use the template. And then we're going to cut out our jars. Now, since the jars are large, you'll only fit 2 jars to a sheet unless you want to change the dimensions of the template, which is completely up to you. So we're going to go ahead, cut out the jars, cut out the specimen labels, and then cut out our hearts. I'm going to do that off camera just to save some time, and then I'll come back and we'll start to put it together. Okay, so I went ahead and cut out my jar, my specimen label, and my heart. So now that we have all that done, we're ready to start putting it together. Now, before we start doing that, this would be the best time to go ahead and color in your jar if you wanted to give it some more dimensions, just so it has time to dry before you put the whole card together. So I am going to do that for the sake of this tutorial. Like I said, it's up to you if you actually want to take that step or not. So I'm just going to move these things out of the way. And then I'm going to get my watercolors. So for this, I'm going to have a little cup of water, a paper towel to kind of dry my brush off if it gets a little too saturated, and then a little water container. In all of my specimen jars I have, the fluid after they get so old, it kind of turns a little discolored and like a yellowish orange tinge to it. So I'm going to try to keep it sheer because we don't want to overpower the card with the colors in the jar, but we do want to give it just a little dimension. So I'm going to be using this kind of, it looks a little darker on here than it does in real life, but it's like a peachy nude type of color. And then we're going to be adding shadow with this sort of orangey color right here. So peach and orange are going to be basics for that. And then over here, there is it's actually a very light brown, although it looks much darker on camera. And we're going to use that to color the cork lid. So this is meant to be like a cork. So let's go ahead and we'll get started with that. So I'm just going to take my brush and wet it. Now, for the sake of this, you don't want it to be overtly saturated because you don't want to warp your paper. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to dip it in that peachy nude color. I'm going to get the brush a little bit wetter since for this base coat here. I'm just going to do a sheer wash. So I hope that that's picking up on the camera okay. I just want to give it the impression that there's some fluid in the jar. And if you find that when you're putting the watercolor down that it grabs in certain spots and they look too dark, the beauty of the watercolor is that you can just add a little more water to your brush, and then if you catch it before it completely dries, you're able to maneuver a lot of it and thin it out. Perfect. Now we're going to add our shadows. So we're going to pick this dark orange color right here, and then we're going to go into the bottom and we're just going to kind of sort of paint like a like an oblong shape. And that's just going to give the illusion that the heart is casting a shadow when it's in the jar. I'm just going to darken any areas you feel like need it. And also too, if it becomes too saturated or if your paper starts to pill, you can just take your paper towel, which I'm going to do right now just to show you, and just sort of blot. And that will take up some of the excess water or any sorts of pilling you're getting with your paper. Okay. And now we're going to do the same thing with that orange shade up top, but we're only going to cover the back side of this circle here, or this oblong shape, just to make it look like there's a shadow. So what we did, the camera went out of focus there, but all we did was just painted around this outside edge here, just to give it a little more dimension. And now I'm just going to kind of blend these edges a little, so it doesn't look too harsh. Okay, and now all we have to do is the cork. So we're going to use this, it's actually a very light brown shade, like I said, but it looks really dark on the camera right now, but it's right here. And we're just going to color the cork. And there's some dimension on the outline itself, so you don't really need to worry about shading the cork too much, because it automatically kind of looks darker up top, which will give it more of a three-dimensional effect. Okay, so that, hopefully it's in focus, is the jar done. So we're just going to have to let that dry a little bit before we attach the other pieces, just so we don't warp the shape of the jar. Now, if you find that your paper got too wet, and it started to warp it a little bit, you can just sort of let it dry and then press it between a book, or you could even put it put a towel over top of it and iron it on the lowest setting that you have, and just make sure you don't burn it. But for this one, it doesn't look like it's warping too badly at this stage, so I think we should be okay just to put it straight on the card. So we're just going to go ahead and let that dry, and then we'll put it together. Okay, so we've given our little jar here some time to dry, and now I think we should be ready to go ahead and put everything together. So this is our heart cutout, as we saw earlier. So all we're going to do, now like I said, I prefer to use hot glue for this just so it doesn't warp the paper. Just going to put a few spots of glue on it and then just stick it in the center of the card. Now, just to make it look more realistic, hearts would not sit perfectly straight up. When they're in fluid, they would kind of flop. So I'm going to set it kind of catty corner just to make it look like it's leaning inside the jar. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove all this glue that's stuck to my glue gun here. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to dot it sort of at the outermost points, just to hold it secure. And this will also give the heart a little bit of dimension too, since it won't lie completely flat due to the hot glue. So we're just going to lie it, like I said, sort of catty corner. So I'm going to put it right where that shadow in the bottom starts. And then we're just going to pat it down while that glue is setting. Now if you wanted to just go ahead and glue this straight down on the card, that would be absolutely perfect as well. But like I said, just to give it a little bit more dimension, just to give it a little bit of a 3D effect, I'm going to go ahead and take this plastic strip and I'm going to fold the ends. Let me go ahead and move this out of the way so you can see better. I'm just going to fold it over a little bit, just to sort of make a little edge. We're going to do that on both sides. Okay. And then we're just going to take some hot glue and we're going to glue each end to the back of the card here. Okay. And then we're going to do the other side as well. And then we're just going to press those folded edges down to the card. I'm just going to try to keep it centered as much as possible. I'm just going to press them down until that hot glue sets. Okay, and so what that's going to do is it's going to give it a little bit of height, so it'll kind of project off of the front of the card. So then what you would do after you're happy with that, and after the glue has set on your little plastic strips on the back, you can kind of puff it out a little bit just to give it some additional height, just to make sure it didn't get too flattened while you were pushing the glue down. And then you're just going to add some extra glue dots to the top and bottom of that plastic strip and then set that directly on the card. So that's what we're going to do now. You can put one in the middle too, just for extra security if you like. And then we're just going to go ahead and position that where we like it on the card. The next thing that we need to do is add our ribbon here. So we're just going to go ahead and tie a little bow, and then we're going to cut it down to fit the size that we like on the jar. So you just kind of can pull the ends until you feel like it's the proper size that you like for the jar, and it's going to sit right up here by the cork. Okay, you can hold it up for size reference. I think that looks pretty good. So we're just going to cut this off. And then I'm just going to cut some of the excess ribbon off because I did oversize the tails a little just to make sure we had enough. Okay. And so then we're just going to take that and we're going to glue it right between the cork line on the jar and where the fluid starts. So that is the exterior of the card done. So now we're just going to go ahead and we're going to glue our little specimen label inside the card. So we're going to do that with the hot glue as well, just because, like I said, I find it a little less messy So just going to kind of center it just to give you the opportunity to write something below it or above it if you'd like to, something more personalized to whoever the recipient is. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn that over, trying not to burn our fingers with the hot glue, and center it. And just press it down until the glue sets. Okay, and that is our card done. I hope you enjoyed it. I have a ton more ideas for other fun DIYs coming up, and then also I'm going to do some more videos sharing my oddities collection, the art that I've created, and a bunch of other fun things I have in store. So if you liked the project today, or if you'd like to see anything else that I have coming up next, please go ahead, click the like button and subscribe, and I hope to see you here for the next one. Thanks!